Hello and welcome to our channel. If you're a teacher in CBC 844 or tutoring any system, you know the pile of scripts never ends. And while teaching is our passion, let's be honest, marking not exactly the part we look forward to, but have learned some tried and true hacks that save time, cut stress, and make the whole process way more manageable. In this video, I'm sharing the exact exam marking hacks I swear by, and trust me, you'll want to stick around to the very end.
Hacks that I swear
Enjoy!
by. These are those marking hacks that I always use when I'm marking my students' papers. And the first one and the most important one for me is using a marking scheme. And I actually urge all examiners to always use a marking scheme. And more on that is that you should stick to the official marking scheme that you've created or one that has been provided, especially in the event you're sitting a common evaluation test, maybe like the one we sat in my school for sub-county. Just stick to the official marking scheme provided, but leave quick notes for yourself, especially when students give unusual or borderline answers. This is because it will help defend your answers when challenged. We all know our learners, their strengths, and especially how they approach different questions. And that is why we're saying that you should leave quick notes, especially when learners come to maybe inquire why they missed a mark after answering a certain question a certain way. Yeah. So leave notes for those borderline answers, and have reservations just in case maybe an answer is wrong and maybe you might have overlooked and all that. Then the other thing I usually do is having my marking scheme as well. Yes, there's a common marking scheme that has been provided, but I always go through it to see and check that answers provided also are there are events where maybe there could be maybe some mix up, but it's always good to go through the official marking scheme provided, even as you also attempt to develop yours and make additions or maybe editions as well where editing is needed. Yeah. And then we go to the second part. Now we have our marking scheme already, right? So the second most important thing is mark question by question, and on this we're saying focus on one question first across all scripts to stay consistent and pick on patterns in students understanding. And an example of this, like maybe I'd put myself in that situation in that I'm a teacher of English and literature, and especially in maybe paper 2 English, we usually have 4 questions. We have the comprehension, we have the excerpt, we have the oral narrative or poetry, whatever, and then for question 4 we have grammar. If it means marking question by question, it means maybe picking which question I'll start with first. It could be maybe grammar, so I go marking grammar across all scripts. If I had an entry of 38 students or 40 or 50, it means I'll first maybe mark, not maybe, I'll first address and I'll first go marking question 1 or question 4 for all the scripts that I have for my students. Yeah. And then the third thing, another importance of marking question by question is that it helps in having the marking scheme stuck to your head. And with time, as you mark, you pick on patterns, and you know what answer should be given for what question, and also you can easily tell how your students understood that question, and the kind of answers that most of them gave for that question, and how they generally performed in that question. Yeah. And then now we hop on to number 3 hack that I swear by, and the third one is start with the easiest question first. What this means is begin with the clearest or the strongest response, because it will help build momentum and makes the process less daunting. And an example for that, we're saying that you should start with the easiest question, and like I've given the example of paper 2 English, the easiest for me in that event would be maybe grammar, because grammar is only 15 marks, and it's usually question 4. It's question 4, but then it has a series of questions. It has a number of questions because it's 15 marks distributed across several questions, maybe like 5, each question carrying either 3 marks or 2 marks. Yeah, at most I think 3 marks. So because I'm confident that grammar has like solid, or it already has set answers. For example, if we are answering questions using prepositions, I'm certain that there's a specific preposition that suits that question, so you can't just add on something. We don't allow, like, is it borderline answers, or in that you just come up with your answer. The answers are sort of fixed, so it means that one will be easy for me to mark, because I can tell if you've not written she went through the channel. Anyone that has not written through has failed, so I just go marking and giving a right where it's been awarding mark, where it's deserving, where the student is deserving, and denying mark where the student didn't get it right. And then another thing that I do, very, very important. This one now is actually, I think sometimes I usually find myself starting with this one first, is crossing out blanks. Crossing out blank spaces immediately I see them. And we're saying this one is your defense as an examiner, as the one who's marking, as the one who's awarding marks to your students, because one way of doing it is drawing a line through the unused space to prevent students from writing extra answers after scripts are collected. And we often find ourselves in this situation where a student maybe might come and tell you, look, you didn't mark this one yet. The student had not written anything at all. It's just that they decided to take advantage of that situation where you didn't cross out, and now they've not provided an answer because maybe they ran out of time, or they didn't know the answer as of that time. So now when the papers have been collected, maybe they've remembered the answer, or they've exchanged the papers with their friends, with their classmates, and now they have the chance to now write the answer. So when you've crossed out the blank, or you've crossed out the blank spaces, or you've drawn a line through the unused space, it helps defend, or we're saying that it helps protect the integrity of your marking, the integrity of an examiner's marking. So that one is very important. Then we have our 5th point here, and just a minute. For the 5th point, we're saying group similar questions together, and this is especially for multi-section exams. Cluster similar types of questions, e.g. grammar, comprehension, essay, and mark them in batches to stay mentally tuned in. I think when it comes to grouping similar questions together, I'd already talked about it when I talked about starting with the easiest question first. So it's basically looking out for, if I'm starting with grammar, that's my easiest question. It means I'll put my papers in batches, and then I'll be marking those similar questions that have been grouped, those questions that I've grouped together. I'll be marking them in batches until I'm done addressing that question, before I can hop on to the other question in my examination. Then point number 6, keep a tally of common errors, and we're saying this is how you can do it. You can do it by writing down recurring mistakes and your responses to them, so as to help in speeding up your marking, and also it will help you create targeted feedback later. And by keeping a tally of common errors, these are the common are those errors that are maybe do you say repetitive, or you've seen patterns of those errors. They've been very common, in that many students have made those errors. So you should keep a tally of them, have a number of them. How did my students perform in this question? Maybe question 4B, I can see that maybe several of them have failed. What is the mistake, or what error, or what might have contributed to how they understood that question? So you keep you write down those recurring mistakes and your responses to them. For example, if you tell them maybe if it is an issue of capitalization, this one because it is a proper noun, I expected you to have capitalized. So maybe most students failed because they failed to capitalize a proper noun, or maybe they failed to capitalize we know that we are supposed to begin all sentences with a capital letter, and maybe that was their mistake. So as you keep a tally of that, also write down those repeated mistakes and then your responses to them. You can write a very short, you can leave a very short note in the script of your learner or of that paper that you're marking. Then number 7, highlight incorrectly written options. And we're saying if students write answers in the wrong format, you should highlight it early to avoid awarding and earned marks later. And when explaining this, I want to go back to the example I've given when you're talking of keeping a tally of common errors. But please do not we're not veering off what we're discussing. We're still on highlighting incorrectly written options, and I've given that example of proper nouns. You may find that a student has gotten the answer correctly, but then they forgot to capitalize a proper noun, and you know that is a very serious error. That's a grave mistake in grammar. So highlight that, and you may highlight it, or you could also circle or rewrite for them with the correct answer, so that you do not you do not maybe award the mark where they were not deserving of it. Or also, sorry, you do not because also you sometimes mostly leniency, when you're too lenient in your marking, it may also cultivate, is it a normalcy culture, in that a student could maybe repeat the same mistake over and over just because they were awarded a mark, even if you try explaining later. So highlight incorrectly written options so that you avoid awarding and earned marks. Then number 8, beware of dual answers. Dual means two answers, and we're told when a student writes two answers, even if one is correct, cross the answers out. Cross the dual answers, the two options provided, cross them out. And we're told you could circle it or make a decision and circle it and make a decision. Do not assume their intention, and you should avoid giving, we're saying that you should avoid giving if the response is unclear. And when you're talking about beware of dual answer, you may find that let me give an example of something that we all know. You may have a sentence, for example, she went to Nairobi City yesterday. She went to Nairobi City yesterday, and you're told to provide to show, or to not to underline, actually to identify and write down the proper noun in that sentence. And you may find that a student has written city and Nairobi. She's provided the two answers. Yet we know that Nairobi is a proper noun, while city is a common noun. It's a general name for a place. Nairobi is a specific name for a city, for a place. So Nairobi ideally should have been the correct answer. So when you find yourself marking such a paper, what you're supposed to do is to circle the two answers, because you know the student had been asked, the examiner had asked the student to provide or to identify the proper noun in that sentence and write it down. But then she wrote two nouns, yet you know that one is not a proper noun. So circle them and then do not award. Actually, you are supposed to penalize a mark for that duality. Then number 9, and I think that's my last point. Oh, that was our number 8. Then number 9, no, it's our second last point. We are saying award total marks. Sorry, just a minute. We're saying award total marks after a full question not per page. Just hold on there, I'll explain. And we're saying it helps avoid learner question through helps avoid learners question, especially through double counting, especially if a question is split across 2 or more pages. Instead of awarding marks after every page, wait until you've marked all the questions of that section, then write one total mark at the end. Okay, we could say that confusion could be brought about by learners totaling up marks, double counting, accidentally double counting marks if the marks are written per page. An example would be if we have a question of maybe 4 marks, no, actually 4 questions, each carrying a mark. So if my student got all the marks on that question, and I've counted, I've awarded a mark, I've written 0-1 after every question gotten right, and then at the end of that page I write 0-4, yet I'd already awarded a mark there. You might see that a student has totaled it to maybe for them to get 8, yet ideally if I'd written just 4 it would have been easier. Yeah, I know how confusing that can be, but I think we should actually try. And this one is actually very helpful, especially when a question is split across several pages. So you see maybe a question carrying 25 marks is especially for language teachers. So you see maybe we have a comprehension, and then it ends on page 5, and then you have question 1 on page 5, and then other questions are spilled. Can we talk of spilled over to page 6, and then others are spilled over to page 7. So if I am awarding marks per page, sometimes it may bring about confusion, although some are able to escape it, but not all. And then a hack had not included in my notes, but this one works like magic every time I attempt it. Now we've already marked, and we have our totals. Maybe we've indicated on the first page every question, the mark attained, and we've made our totals. And now it is time to record those marks in our mark books, or if you're using we call class list, whichever, but okay, let's talk of whatever way you're using to record that mark. We need to record those marks. So how do we go about it? Here's a trick that I've been using since I started teaching actively in some few years back. Yeah, it is not grouping, but rather arranging my papers according to not the one who scored the highest or the one who scored the lowest, or how the students, or maybe the alphabetical order of their names alphabetical order. No, I usually arrange them according to the admission number, from the first one to come to school, from the first admission number, and in that event it will be maybe admission number 1, admission number 2, all the way to the last person to be admitted. And this is a lifesaver, because in the what do we call them, in the class lists, especially the ones rolled out by the school admin, they usually have their entry in order of admission number. So if I've arranged the papers according to the admission number, it avoids too much fatigue and fatigue and even too much darting of your eyes across the page as you try to find somebody's admission number. You 1 minute you're recording marks for admission number 782, the other time you're darting your eyes all the way up or across another page looking for admission number 421. So I usually arrange it from the first to be admitted, from the first person in to the last person in, first admission number to the last admission number, so that it can be easier for me to record those marks in my MacBook or in the class list. And that is all as pertains to the marking hacks that I swear by, and I hope you'll try a hack or several of them, and then you'll share how it turns out. And I wish you all the best in your marking. I know it's a very busy week, a very busy month, especially for teachers, and I wish you well in your marking. Good luck in your marking. Thank you for staying tuned. Now, if you've liked this kind of content, please like, comment, subscribe, and share with all other people who you deem, who you consider that this kind of content will really be helpful to, and share with all other people who you deem, who you consider that this kind of content will really be helpful to them. Thank you so much. God bless you.